retorted in her usual taray fashion by saying, yun na nga eh. Not known to many who are following this case, Cesar Mancao and Glenn Dumlao to date have executed 3 sworn affidavits each. In this case, the contents of the affidavits are modified at each turn, and it would take some patience and perhaps extra professional expertise to separate the grains of truth from the specks of dirt in the testimonies given by both affiants. All of the aforementioned affidavits do not contain any statement linking me to the crime, except the one executed by Cesar Mancao on February 14, 2009. In the other affidavits, statements made by Mancao and Dumlao even exculpate me from the crime, attesting to the fact that indeed I had no knowledge, much less authorization for its execution. In the August 27, 2009 banner story of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, the legal counsel for Mancao, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio, said that in a court hearing, his client identified me as the one who carried out President Estrada's order to abduct and kill Bobby Dacer. But the official transcript of the records of the court proceeding flatly belies Attorney Topacio's statement before the media who interviewed him. That made me think, is this what the lawyer and the prosecutors wanted Mancao to say at the hearing in accordance with a scripted scenario? Whether Attorney Topacio made those statements out of recklessness or out of malice is of minor importance. What is more significant is that it ruined my reputation both as a senator and as a citizen of this country. By making such untrue and malicious statement to the press, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio clearly violated Rule 13.02 under Canon 13 of the Code of Professional Responsibility that states, and I quote, "A lawyer shall not make public statements in the media regarding a pending case tending to arouse public opinion for or against a party," unquote. When reminded that his reckless statement can make him subject of disbarment proceedings, Attorney Topacio conveniently blamed the media by claiming that he was misquoted. Kung isa o dalawang reporter lang sana ang nakarinig ng kanyang sinabi, baka umubra pa ang kanyang palusot. I am almost tempted to use more colorful language for Attorney Topacio's behavior and demeanor as a member of the bar, but I would rather express my condemnation in formal administrative and criminal complaints that I will file against him. Attorney Topacio's cheap media propaganda tactic is simply the latest of many insidious efforts to ruin my reputation or implicate me in a criminal case by resorting to falsehoods. Our colleague, the gentleman from San Juan City, quoted a statement issued by the same attorney, Ferdinand Topacio, in effect saying that in his, quote, honest opinion as a lawyer of Cesar Mancao, he believes that Senator Lacson is the only one being directly linked by his client to the twin murders, unquote. To all the lawyers in this august chamber, since when does the opinion of a lawyer of a witness in a criminal case carry weight and probative value? It is my humble submission, Mr. President, that the said opinion is at its best a self-serving, uncalled for remark from an officer of the court. Worse, it is unethical, even criminal. Only last Friday, Mr. President, September 18, 2009, at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Glenn Dumlao was visited by a lawyer inside his DOJ safe house when he conveyed a message from the same attorney, Ferdinand Topacio, to convince him to corroborate the affidavit executed by a newfound false lavandera witness that I had a shouting match with Mr. Dacer in a beach resort in Batangas. Finding Glenn Dumlao unconvinced to perjure himself and cooperate with them, the lawyer said, "Paano yan? Iipitin nila ang reinstatement mo sa PNP kung hindi mo susundin ang gusto nila." To which Glenn Dumlao replied, "Edi hindi na lang ako magpupulis. Magsasaka na lang ako." The lawyer added, "Mukhang nagkakasabwatan na sina Topacio at Erap." Mukha nga, Mr. President, kasi ang bilis makakuha ng statement of support ang kasamahan nating senador na taga San Juan galing kay Attorney Topacio. Ano ba namang klaseng mga abogado ito, Mr. President? Are they not aware of the crime of subornation of perjury? In fact, just last Sunday afternoon, just the other day, Mr. President, Attorney Topacio reported to the former president at his Polk Street residence, where other prominent lawyers of Mr. Estrada were in attendance. One of them could not believe what he saw, for Mr. Topacio is lawyering for witness Mangkao, not for Mr. Estrada. So shocked that this prominent member of the bar informed me. Mr. Topacio was even bragging to a semi-retired publicist, once Press Undersecretary Ike Gutierrez, Undersecretary to the former President Ike Gutierrez, how he lambasted me in a press forum earlier, as if reporting mission accomplished and asking the envelope, please. This administration and its cohorts will stop at nothing to deliver misery at my front door. This utter disregard for the truth is best exemplified in the following excerpts from Glenn Dumlao's affidavit dated May 20, 2003. At the time of this conversation, he was under the custody of the PNP starting second quarter of 2001. He said, "I experienced my greatest fear when I was brought to the office of ISAP Chief Colonel Victor Corpus at 7:30 a.m. on December 17, 2002. During the meeting, Colonel Corpus did almost all of the talking, like a madman. Colonel Corpus told me that, 'Sige, magdiretsahan tayo. Kung di ka tutulong sa amin, ibibigay ka namin kay Ping para patayin ka. Ayaw namin ang katotohanan. Kung amin ka, dapat total support at ipindown natin si Ping. Bibigyan ka namin na magandang buhay at posisyon. Andito lahat ang makakatulong sa iyo." At that time, Mr. President, former Secretary Hernando Perez was present, former General Beroya was present, former NBI Director was Reynaldo Vicoc was present. They were all present in that meeting, Mr. President. Andito lahat ang makakatulong sa iyo. Pero kung hindi, magkaka-leche-leche na ang buhay mo. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Ibigay ninyo sa akin ang custody ng taong ito kasi play safe siya eh. Takot siya kay Lacson. Dito sa ISAP, I promise you, 2 araw lang ang dami ng ikakantayan. Incidentally, I was informed by my lawyers that in a hearing of an ongoing libel case that I filed against Victor Corpus and other parties, he apologized in open court for vilifying me publicly, using characters like Ador Mawanay, Mary Rose Badong, Debnani, and others, mostly in public hearings conducted by the Committee on Public Order and Illegal Drugs, chaired by the late Senator Robert Barbers. Glenn Dumlao was subjected to threats and intimidation while in police custody, and even now that he is under the protective custody of the DOJ, he suffered mental, emotional, psychological, and even physical pressure. When he did not give in, he was promised a good position and a comfortable life. In spite of this, he consistently refused to perjure himself and sacrifice the truth for the sake of justice that has been eluding the Dacer and Corbito families. I cannot help but admire his character. His alma mater, the Philippine National Police Academy, can be truly proud of him despite the confessions he publicly made of his past sins. My own alma mater, the Philippine Military Academy, is not short of alumni who truly and continuously live up to the ideals of the institution and our motto: courage, integrity, and loyalty in the face of difficult odds or the temptation of financial benefits. Nothing less must be expected of a fellow cavalier like Cesar Mancao. Mr. President, I have been a law enforcer before I became a senator. I uphold the law. I arrest criminals. I know that I must fulfill my oath of office and follow only legal orders. Kung sa huweting nga, na bukod sa may milyon-milyong piso akong matatanggap bawat buwan, may basbas pa, may utos pa ang Commander-in-Chief, hindi ako sumunod o umayon, sa murder pa kaya? Last Friday, I read in the news, quoting Attorney Demetrio Custodio Jr., who represents the Dacer family as legal counsel, that a certain Labandera volunteered to testify that this representation had a shouting match with Mr. Dacer in a beach resort in Batangas 1 week before he was abducted. On the same page, Attorney Custodio revealed that the Dacer family is willing to accept me as a state witness if I divulge information pointing to the real mastermind behind the twin murders. The Labandera story appears to be a small-minded gambit to make me accept the offer. Thanks, but no thanks. We must not allow our search for the truth to be colored by personal motivations nor sidetracked by idiocy. In the first place, I was not a close acquaintance of Mr. Dacer, and certainly not close enough to spend time with him in a beach resort, be it in Batangas or elsewhere. I hate beaches, Mr. President, as a matter of fact. And I don't remember having gone to any beach in Batangas in my entire life. In the second place, I was not a participant nor had any involvement in the crime. So how would I qualify as a state witness? It obviously appears that the Labandera story was concocted to support yet another theory behind the crime, that I had a personal motive to harm Mr. Dacer. What I can assure the Dacer and Corbito families is that I am willing to even sit down with them privately and share voluntarily and unconditionally whatever I know about the abduction and murder of Mr. Dacer and his driver. This representation, Mr. President, is as interested as they are to finally bring the real mastermind of this dastardly crime before the bar of justice. Both my parents died last year. I know how it feels to lose our loved ones. The Dacer and Corbito families suffered their loss under extraordinary circumstances. I fully understand their grief and frustration that justice for their parents remain elusive up to now. The objective quest for truth and justice must be paramount, Mr. President. The guilty must answer for his crime. The innocent must be unburdened by baseless accusations and persecution. Let me tell you another story. The great Thomas Edison was at one time conducting a series of experiments. A laboratory assistant who was impatient with the results so far, told Mr. Edison, "Sir, the last one was our 700th experiment, and so far we have not been successful." To which the great man of science replied, "Good, that means we have eliminated 700 ways that will lead us to nowhere." I hope our Department of Justice, with our zealous prosecutors, will get a cue from Mr. Edison. I am not suggesting that the DOJ try 700 ways to get to the bottom of the Dacer Corbito double murder case, but to include me in the list of persons to answer for this heinous crime simply because I am one very vocal critic of this administration impedes the wheels of justice, leads it astray and nowhere near the truth. We do not have 700 suspects in this case, so the process of elimination will be much easier and quicker than in the case of Mr. Edison's experiments. It is basic in any crime investigation to look at three simple elements, Mr. President: motive, instrument, and opportunity. They should first ask who has all three, and they will not go wrong. This will bring me to another curious case, Mr. President: the disappearance of Mr. Edgar Bentain. The video...
Parang bombang pinasabog ni dating Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office Chairman Manoling Murato ang video na ito, ilang buwan bago ang May 1998 presidential elections. Kuha ang video na ito noong September 15, 1996 sa VIP pit ng Heritage Hotel Casino. Makikita nagsusugalang nooy Vice Presidenting si Joseph Ejercito Estrada kasamang kaibigan si Charlie Atong Ang. Kasama rin nila ang dating General Manager ng casino si Butch Tenorio.
As I said, Mr. President, this brings me to another curious case, the disappearance of Mr. Edgar Bentain, the video operator of PAGCOR, who came out with a footage of then candidate Vice President Estrada gambling in the casino. This much I can share. In the meantime, to our distinguished colleagues, the family of Mr. Bentain, and the Filipino people, sometime in the middle of January 1999, one day after Edgar Bentain was abducted somewhere along Ross Boulevard and killed somewhere in Laguna, a police officer, still active at that time, went to Polk Street in Green Hills and reported compliance with a mission accomplished. The house occupant simply said, "Sige, sabihin mo sa mga bata, maraming salamat." I did not identify the criminal simply because I did not have any participation or direct personal knowledge of these criminal activities while they were taking place years ago. My investigation is ongoing even as I speak today. But I have gathered enough facts and data to provide the useful leads to unmask the mastermind's true identity and his active participation, including other persons who were barely mentioned in the conduct of investigation. True to my expectations, Mr. President, many are those who questioned my motives or the veracity of my statements. But to date, my statements before this august chamber were sufficiently and independently corroborated and affirmed by other parties. My assertions appeal to logic and common sense. They can stand the test of truth. Why speak only now? To me, the more relevant and all-important question, Mr. President, is, did I speak the truth? Katotohanan ba ang aking sinasabi? To anyone who dares challenge the truthfulness of my assertion, let him speak now. There can be 1,000 reasons for why, how, and when truth will find a way to stand out. But when it does, we must welcome it with open arms instead of questioning its timing and motive. Cold reason, not heated passion or blind emotion, spoken through fiery but empty rhetoric, will enlighten our path to truth and justice for Mr. Dacer, for Mr. Corbito, for Edgar Bentayin, and their grieving families. Justice for them will be justice for all Filipinos. Let me end this speech with some excerpts from an interview with Superintendent Glenn Dumlao.
Si Senator Lacson, si General Lacson of the time was so strict. Yun yung taong hindi mo basta masabihan ng ganito, i-release mo ito. Kaya ang ginagawa ng Malacanang, kasi Malacanang ang talagang where else would the order will come. PAOK is direct from Malacanang. Kaya si tinawagan niya ako na itigil niya, i-release lahat yan, tumawag ang Malacanang. Sabi ko, sir, paano yung, diba, paano kung mga iniimbestigahan dyan? Basta sabi niya, i-release na lahat yan. So, ano magawa ko? Parang napahiya ako tuloy sa mga EIIB at saka yung sa Maritime Command na hoping na yung PAOK makapag-deliver na walang kakatakutan. Ngayon, nung nilalabas na yung mga container van, I don't know how will I explain it to them. Anong nangyari? Ako rin, hindi ko alam. Pero ito, sabi niya, Glenn, umalis ka na dyan. Sir, bakit sir? Nakialam na naman ang Malacanang. Yung mga nag-augment sa akin na nagbantay doon ng 3 araw doon sa warehouse, pinull out ko, tapos nagtataka sila bakit. Hindi ko rin alam, paliwanag bakit. Tumawag ako ulit kay Kanal. Sabi ko, sir, wala akong makuha. Paano yung BW records? Sabi niya, nakuha mo ba yung BW records na allegedly ibibigay niya at that day kay FBR at saka kay Almonte kasi magkakaroon kasi ng meeting. And that is the BW records na i-taken over din ng oposisyon sa mga prosecution at sa impeachment. Sabi ko, ang alam siguro kay Latino is parang may dalawang folder na ibibigay mo. Sabi ko, isang box yung dokumento dito, sabi ko. It's like box na gano'n na hindi ko alam ang bandito. And I have no time na mag-scan pa gano'n and ayaw pa namang guluhin. So sabi niya, sige kunin mo lahat yung records, secure mo and back to base. So, nagtitimpi lang ako kasi I want like bill of justice. Yun na lang ang panhindi nga ako nagpapa-interview dahil ayaw ko rin. Pero siguro it's high time na sabihin ko na kasi sinasabi pa niya yun na nag-usap pa kami yan, kumpare ko yan, nag-usap kami, nibitahan ko sa Malacanang. Yun ngayon sabi ni Colonel Aquino hindi sila sabi ni Colonel Aquino, hindi sila nagkaintindihan, matigas ang ulo, kaya ginawa naman yung operation. Kaya mo na yung conduct, ito sabi ko, morally convinced ako sa Malacanang yan. Kasi erap na yan.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Lacson. Majority Floor Leader.
I believe the Senate President pro tempore